Hello?
Hey, Mary. Hey, Mary.
All right, it's 3 PM, so we can call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment? See anyone here? There's nobody online?
No hands raised.
Thank you. So we'll move on to correspondence. We have two pieces of correspondence this month. One is a letter from the Mass Historical Commission. This is dated quite a while back, April 30th. I think we received it after our last meeting. And this, I think, is fairly routine. We get these whenever there's a new phase of the sewer project starting, and this basically is a letter that MHC sends that talks about the archaeologist, and we're just copied on it to be informed. So unless anyone has any questions on it, I think we can move along. Anybody? Okay.
Can I just add, Mr. Chair, just so you know the timing on that? I don't know if the letter talked about it, but I've been involved in the team that monitors the progress. Contract's been awarded to Robert B. Auer, same company that did phase one. They are in the process of what's called preparing and providing submittals, meaning showing us what they're going to be buying and installing matches what they bid on and we requested. That takes a number of months. They'll probably not break ground until probably the September, October timeframe.
When do homeowners get notified?
They will actually be getting notified probably end of July, early August. Yeah, homeowner notification letters will probably be going out under the signature of the Board of Health.
And this will do Aries Pond as
This
part
will
of it?
do majority of Aries Pond. There was that alternate area that because the bid came in so low, we were able to include that, so yes.
How about West Quonset?
I'd have to get back to you on those details.
That's all right. If the
Yeah.
letter will show up or it won't show up, I understand.
If you get a letter, you know.
That means that area, as you know, Kevin, is where we did our first archaeology survey. It's a target-rich area as far as talking about Native American sites. So that'll be something that, we'll want to do some due diligence.
This was the kickoff meeting, pre-construction. I can tell you specifically, the contractor was reminded that PAL, the hired expert, must be on site in those sensitive areas.
Great.
Do you know, as they work on Keziahs, whether or not that is also the case?
I can get back to you, Bill, on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anything else on the sewer next phase? Okay. So the next letter we have is from two members of the Nauset tribe, I guess, is who are resident in Orleans and have raised an issue with the monument in the Academy Playhouse. I'll just read what I think is the crux of the letter. It says, the traditional lands of the...
Could I just
Yeah.
stop you for a second? You said the Playhouse.
I'm sorry, I meant the
Place.
Academy Place. I
Okay.
have Playhouse on my mind because it's further down the agenda. Sorry, I meant the park, the Veterans Park at 5 Academy Place. Thanks. So they point out that the inscription on the monument that was placed in the park reads, acknowledges the traditional lands of the Wampanoag people to have always existed here. We are not asking that the Wampanoag be removed, we're asking that Nauset be included alongside it. That is historically accurate and respectful wording. And there's been some discussion about this, and Bruce, I know that you've been in contact with Irving Puffer, and I'm not sure about Pam, but maybe you can tell us. I think there's been some resolution to this, if that's not inaccurate.
Irving and Pam Puffer belong to, or founding members of a Nauset Tribal Foundation. Irving lives in Wellfleet and Pam lives in Provincetown. And they are very strong advocates for the Nauset tribe, and they believe that the Nausets were separate from the Wampanoags, and this gets into some very arcane and complex naming issues this is paralleled in a number of places, and of course, it changes significantly over history and over time. But the clear evidence is that there were Norsets living east of the Bass River. Whether they were or were not properly included in the Wampanoag designation is arguable. And we're not the ones who are going to decide that either, and there's a tension, as best as I can tell, between the indigenous groups themselves around this matter, and we just got caught up in the middle of it. Part of the conflict was that the town land acknowledgement says Wampanoag and Nauset. And in the beginning stages of discussing the wording for the plaque, it was agreed that it would include the town land acknowledgement, namely Wampanoag and Nauset. And over the course of time in the development, for reasons that I don't want to go into here, the name Nauset was dropped. And the Puffers, as representative of the Norsets, objected. I have spoken to both of the Puffers, and I have indicated to them that I believe the town feels an obligation to further identify the Norsets as being the original inhabitants of this particular town, and that we will have opportunities to do that. My favorite one of those being the naming of the Governor Prince, and whether that couldn't include an historic Nauset personage and a plaque. But that's the long and the short of it. There was a lot of heat, but it was very localized, and I think has been put to rest for now.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I think going forward, we're gonna have some opportunities, we're gonna create some signage, we're gonna do some other content. And so I think we just need to bear in mind that we wanna make sure that there's recognition for the Norsets who were.
Exactly.
So I think that's our to-do out of this. And I don't think, Mike, we owe a response on this email beyond this discussion, or does anybody need to respond to this, this correspondence? Other than
I'll leave
that?
that to the commission.
Okay. Bruce, I don't think we're in a place where we need to do that, do we, beyond,
Do what?
respond to the letter?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But did we acknowledge receipt? Is that some formal process where when a letter of that nature comes in, it's acknowledged?
Well, I mean, we're doing that here by having it in the meeting.
I don't feel anything further is needed.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on then to item number 4, which is a discussion regarding the Zoning Board of Appeals case 2026-06, 66 and 67 Route 6A. So, as everybody knows, we last month crafted a comment which we sent to the, Mike, that went to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
No, it went to the Architectural Review Committee.
Architectural Review Committee, sorry.
And the ZBA, to both.
And there's, to both, okay, great. So, they know where we stand, which was that we felt that the design as conceived doesn't really fit in that particular area. So an additional concern came up when Bill was attending the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, I believe, Bill. Bill asked a question, do you want to talk about this? And
Sure. I raised the specter with the developers as to whether or not the town could impose conditions on the construction site similar to what is being done with Phase 3 of the wastewater, and that is an archaeological survey to wit, their counsel responded that the town could not, but that a directive from Mass Historical Commission would do such. In conversation with Ed, a letter we put forth a letter to the Mass Historical Commission asking their direction. I also determined through conversations through Town Hall that HUD money is in fact involved in this project. HUD money generally then triggers an archaeological survey of such property. And there are also some guidelines within that I think it's State Archaeological Section 26A talks about projects that come under their purview. So I'm hoping that the letter that was sent on behalf of this commission and...
Well, it hasn't been sent yet.
Oh, it hasn't?
No, we have to
Okay.
approve it here
Okay.
in order to send it.
Yep.
So there's a draft letter, it's in the packet, but I wanted to make sure that this wasn't moot, that if we knew for sure, and Mike, I don't know if you know this or not, do we know for sure that there is going to be an archaeology survey? Has Mass Historical Commission made any kind of requirement?
I've not heard anything from you.
So I think that being the case, then it's probably prudent to go ahead and send the letter, even if it turns out that they were gonna require, I mean, it's better to do both.
I would agree.
It's pretty obvious that that site, I don't know what was done when it was constructed and what was removed and what new will be exposed. But that was clearly a agricultural and summer encampment site for the Norsets.
Yeah.
When the folks arrived here, given its proximity to Town Cove and its elevation and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I think the argument that they could make would be that it's been developed already once. But I don't know that the laws were as robust back then, and there, you know, I talked to, in fact, I got some advice on how to craft this letter from Holly Herbster, who works for PAL and is working on an archaeology project. And one of the things she told me was that there was a lot of turning of blind eyes in those days, because there wasn't a law that said if you discovered anything, even if it was were human bones, that
Right.
it wasn't necessarily that well policed. Like, you know, today we think there's a law that says if you ignore something, then you find, like, you know, that you're subject to, I think, even criminal penalties. So anyway, I don't know if everybody's on the commission has seen the letter. I put this together with, as I said, with input from Holly Herbster. Mike, I know there was some question that you had, that you wanted to make sure was clear. Was it that it was coming from the commission? And I went back and looked at it and thought that was clear enough. Was there some other thing that you think other things that you think we needed to do to edit this letter?
You're the signatory as the chair of the Orleans Historical Commission, which would be appropriate given the discussion. The one thing that I would just ask, the letter opens with various agencies in the
Yeah.
town. That's not fully accurate, I would say.
Okay.
It's going through board review. So maybe,
What would you change that to? Board?
we could either name the boards or just distinguish from agencies could mean
Oh, I see
outside
what
of
you're
the town.
saying.
Local review might work.
Okay, local review. So, what do I want to say? Local review in the town of Orleans is, or let's see, how do we say it? The town of Orleans is currently conducting local review. How's that? Okay. All right, given that change, let me just make a note of that, so I remember.
Can I ask, Mr. Chair, does that refer to the section that Bill referred to, so
Yeah.
that they can see that's called out? Only thing I would add too, because I was involved in the RFP review process, and I remember part of their submittal, because we did receive two, they must certify compliance with any and all. The language is broad, federal, state, local, you know, so you really do already have them.
Is that in the 43B RFP?
I believe it's in the submittal of their packet, right in the front. It's a certification that they will affirm to comply with any and all federal, state, local laws, bylaws, regulations. So they're already kind
Will I
of,
find that on the town website?
The submittal's posted, yes.
Yes.
Both
Yeah.
proposals
But-
received are there.
Kevin, though, there's a distinction there, though, isn't there, between, they are saying they're gonna comply with the laws, but what they were saying, what they told Bill was that unless they got a requirement from MHC, they weren't going to have an archaeologist on site.
well, you're helping thread the needle.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. All right, so I will make that change about local review and make sure that there's a citation for the, although I'm hoping MHC knows what that is, but I'll make sure to put a citation in there. Okay, so given those edits, can I get somebody to move that we?
I move.
Okay, second?
Just a quick note, we have a new clerk who is taking minutes. She just requested for her first couple meetings, if you could state your name after making a motion or
Right,
second,
okay.
just so she can get it correct.
Yeah, okay, so, Bill, you're making the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so, Bill, we will
Second,
motion.
Bruce Taub.
Second, Bruce Taub, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so 500 to send the letter to MHC as amended. All right,
Mr. Just again, a courtesy and a heads up, as a CC to ZBA might be helpful.
okay. Will do.
I know the continuation is a few weeks away.
29th.
Yeah, so by having them see this, knowing it's bubbling somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
you know, would be good.
Architectural review as well, or do you think ZBA
I
is good?
think this is, ZBA is gonna be
Okay.
the conditioning authority.
Okay, great. All right, so our next item, number 5, is Chapter 106, the demolition delay bylaw. I will note that I drove by today to have a look, that number 20 is gone. Yes, it was demolished this week.
Right.
So, a few thoughts on this. I think we should agree on principles. In other words, what are we gonna do? What do we wanna do with the bylaw? And I think there are a couple of options we've talked about in the past. Do we wanna change the duration? We don't have to agree the principles at this meeting, but I think we wanna relatively soon set what our plan of action is, and then move forward, set up a timeline so we move forward. I think we agreed at the last meeting that we would aim for the spring '27 town meeting to have this ready to go as an article for approval. So that gives us a little bit of time. So I think we want to set the principle, and I think the options are, that we've talked about so far, are move it from 12 to 18 months or some other number. One of the things that I've talked about that I know there's not a general consensus on that we'll need to work out is whether to simplify the definition or leave it as is to minimize the changes. And then are there any other changes that we would want to make?
Can I just ask a question on, and forgive me if I should know this, but is there any language existing that speaks to what the expectations are for the 12 months that unfold? Because what I'm sort of shocked about is, we all sort of assume that, hey, it's fait accompli, but we also sort of use this language like, we'll delay so that the owner can find a more suitable alternative. Is there any sort of suitable alternative language? And also, is there any formal or informal process whereby public, private, and nonprofit sits down with these owners and says, hey, let's find a better way, particularly in our center?
I don't believe there's anything in our bylaw that does anything except impose the delay. We have looked at other bylaws from other towns that require the owners to look for another buyer and to advertise a property for sale. But we don't have anything like that in our, and I think there's some other conditions of that some bylaws impose, that we don't, but we don't have anything like that as far as I know from our bylaw, reading our bylaw, all it does is it's basically forcing the time period in there in the hope that the owner will find doing something else less onerous than waiting a year. But I don't think there's anything in there that articulates anything about that.
I mean, could there be?
There could be, I said, in other bylaws that we've looked at, that the commission has looked at in the past, specify certain actions that have to be taken by the owners in order to avoid the delay. But at the end of the day, the only thing that happens is still the delay.
Do you
Yeah.
know whether or not the bylaws in other communities and municipalities have been challenged in the court? Do we know? In other words, all I'm wondering is whether or not we can create language that's sort of bulletproof from town council and whatever.
I don't know that, but one of the reasons I wanted to have this discussion was if we want to do something like that, if we want to make some changes other than these ones that I've just talked about, that we've talked about in the past, I think we need to have some expertise. We need to review some additional bylaws that embody what we're thinking about, or at least are close, and then we need to get somebody in here who's got some legal expertise around those things. So if we want to propose some additional changes that are going to be more complex, then I think we should put on the agenda for a future meeting to have somebody come and talk to us about what the pros and cons might be and
What the ramifications
yeah.
are, yeah.
So I would propose this, that for the next meeting, we all come in here with the idea that we're gonna get closure on what we're gonna change in the bylaw. And that way we can go put together a plan for how we're gonna get to that point.
The only thing I would say, and we can talk about this, I guess, in sort of the public awareness section, but it seems to me that the demolition delay is one tool, as is a historic district, as might be some sort of public-private task force or whatever. There's some tools that we have. And I think we have to strategically, understand what tools are available to us and what is the best combination of those tools. So I am absolutely in favor of a longer demolition delay, of a demolition delay that actually results in something positive, for the community. But I think we're sitting sort of, at this point where we have to come up with a complete, strategic approach. And so the one-off on, it'd be nice to hear from a consultant, on historic preservation. What is the mix? Where should we be putting our efforts? What has worked? What hasn't worked? I just feel like, this is obviously one critical tool that we have, but, it's, but just to deal with it, independently, seems like we're missing the whole picture. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. The only thing I'd say is that the lead time on a bylaw change is long,
Yeah.
so we want
Get going.
to do some of those things concurrently.
I have a couple things. Prior commissions did have somebody come in and talk about the bylaw. They did come up, we did get what an ideal bylaw would be from the state commission. At that time, and I still think it's valid, there was a conversation of a balance between what is an ideal bylaw and what's accomplishable given the political nature and the prior decisions that are made by the town. The prior commission, historical commission, made decision and then postponed it, but was very clear that the more minimal changes that would take place, the more likely it would be to get done. And a massive rewriting of it that put more obligations on people in the town would probably not pass. So we can get an ideal bylaw that does everything that a commission may want, but it may not pass.
I mean, that is
So
a
that's
fair
a decision has to be made. We came up at that time with two changes that would take place, and only two, nothing else would change. One was that it would be 18 months, and there's enough other towns that have done that it's arguable. And the second was that it would be either 50 or 75 years versus a date of 1925 that would take place, because of course the clock keeps running, so the longer the time comes by, you should have something that can evolve with time. No other changes were submitted at that time. I'm still of the personal belief that that's the most accomplishable approach, and is most likely to have a chance of getting passed.
I also, Thaddeus, to your point about a consultant and trying to figure out what the balance, not only for demolition, but historic districts. We spent how many years trying to develop a historic district within East Orleans, and pointing out and having public meetings and pointing out the economic benefits to the community, to the buyers, to the owners, all sort of to no avail. And a lot of the work that we had done was premised on other communities, and some of those fell clearly apart in court challenge cases, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm happy to engage and go back through that. Only, more education, to your point. Whether or not the demographics and the sentiment in town as a result of the most current demolition happening, people are aghast around town. How did that happen? What happened? I said, May 25th, or May 20th, 2025, they came and applied. We provided it a year and 2 months, and it's gone.
Mr. Chair, you have a unique marketing opportunity right now, which you did not have previously, to Bill's point. You've got a real chance, and sorry, it's Mary Wright speaking for the recording. You have a real opportunity to build on the public sentiment of, oh my God, it's gone. And I would say to you, don't lose that. When you're talking about a small house that's down a street, that nobody drives by all the time, it's not the same. When it's something that everybody remembered, you saw the comments on Facebook. I had my first date there. I had my anniversary there. That's where Mom did whatever. I have my own stories of eating that restaurant. You have a real opportunity. So I think I would say you've got to back up, and it's not so much what's in the language of the regulation. It's what's the outcome that you want to see. And that's the real question of how do you get to that outcome? Because if we say the current rule doesn't get us where we want, so you can say, will it pass or not pass? Well, but it's not achieving the goal. So I think it's an opportunity to go back to look at the long-range plan. And we were very careful in the planning board to be sure that there was wording in there about historic value. So I think it's time to take, the town has said this is important, and we now see what happens when we don't make it important.
Yeah.
And I think that is, to your points that we've talked about, is how do we get people to have that same vision of why there's lots of interest in buying vacant land so it stays vacant, so it's the way it was. Well, it's exactly the same way with these older homes or older buildings. It's the same argument, but I think now you have a real opportunity to talk about that, which we kind of haven't had.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. There's two things I want to take out of what you just said. One is, I think, let's grab that opportunity, because I do remember the stories about people saying, oh, that's where I got engaged, and
Yeah.
other kinds of things, all to do with the Binnacle. It's one of the first places I remember coming to in Orleans. So I think when we talk about public education, Thaddeus, we should talk about, let's make that a story right now while it's still fresh, that's gone, and publicize that. The second thing I think I wanted to say, Mary, was I appreciate that the the demo delay bylaw is only one of our tools.
Yep,
Unfortunately, we don't have too many others.
right.
And I think that's one of the things that we're gonna talk about in a little bit, is that we need more tools, and some of what I think we're looking for, we need help from the select board to get, and maybe even advice, because right now, I'm just throwing out ideas, and I think we need to find out whether those are feasible or not, or if there's something else that's feasible. Kevin?
So I do have lots of ideas, and adding on to Mary's suggestion on motivation, and again, you have one of your members who got published today in the Chronicle, a really good letter, and I would say, use this as kind of a multi-pronged attack. I mean, to the point about an edit to your bylaw. Yes, you can keep it minimal and it'll pass for sure. However, use this time frame to, for example, Thaddeus, I'd suggest if you have the time, come to public comment at next select board meeting. No one knows what you do. I mean, a few of us do appreciate it.
Yeah.
A few of us have adopted it in a renovation that we did at 18 Great Oak Road and preserved the structure. But nobody has this connection with the character, the plan, and the role you have. Because again, you go back to the state law that the town voted you to adopt, you have incredible powers. You can consult, you can actually take property yourselves in your name. I mean, people don't have a clue. So I would say, use this in a multi-pronged way to say to people, we're a board that wants to listen to the concerns. Are people fearful of more of this happening? Because we are the entity that can respond to that with your support. Because again, you saw our town meeting now twice. And I would actually go visit that one individual that spoke at town meeting
Right.
and swayed the whole meeting.
Yep.
Go to her, knock on her door and say, Bev, let's talk.
Yeah,
Because this is not what you want to see happen, right?
right.
And you might bring her around to at least sit down and let town meeting do what it's going to do without swaying it in a negative way.
Yeah.
So I think you've got a lot of ways strategically to do the minimum, but you actually might get enough support to do a little bit more, like the notice provisions. And the last thing I'd say too is, back to the town, and again, I appreciate the thought you have that the select board can do a lot. We can't. We can come up with ideas. We are truly bound by what town meeting does.
Right.
Both in terms of the votes, the numbers, the budget, the dollars, but what you put in place is viewed as a penalty. We need to flip that to kind of.
I agree,
an
and then,
incentive.
right, yes.
Which we don't do.
And we have ideas that we're gonna get to
Yeah,
in this
so-
meeting to talk about that.
But I
Karen,
would just add,
Just know, Joe Nix did meet with those people multiple times. They went to the first meeting where we had an open meeting.
Yes.
They were very actively, there's only 3 people there, but they were very actively involved in doing it. When they spoke at the town meeting, they didn't speak truth. Okay? They came once to CPC. They absolutely did not accurately articulate what was being proposed. So I honestly, I don't think there's any, they're part of the no vote.
Well, I'd be
think-
willing on behalf of
Yeah.
your efforts to do it myself. I know them well, and, not saying anything about who spoke to who, it might have been the time, the situation that was going, because I think you do have a different landscape.
Yeah, I think we do, and to Mary's point, we have a marketing opportunity. And, my little post on social media was to the effect of, this is what the Historic Commission can do, and as notable as it is, the most cherished property in town can simply apply to us for a demolition permit, and we have but 1 year. That's it.
so I just have a couple thoughts. One is, I see the property almost the commercial property that's downtown or in the center or near the center as more impactful in a way than I do, some of the residential, even though perhaps it's not. But there is more collective sense of belonging to that property. And I just wonder, in these cases, particularly if you look at the language in the 2050 plan and what it says about historic preservation, and economic development. I mean, I would love to see the Historical Society involved in this conversation. I would love to see the Chamber of Commerce involved in this conversation. I would love to see a bigger, broader conversation that says, no, this is not good for our town. And I don't know how well 5 of us can sort of carry that ball. I mean, we can give it our best, but to me, it needs to be, a bigger, broader effort with some pressure. I mean, the owner of 20 was, is a local guy with a local business. Could there not be some conversations about like, hey, this is our town, right? This is an asset in our town. We think, it ought to stay.
There's an irony from my perspective, which is that a property is sitting there and it's unattended. And the beetles are attacking it, and the wood borers are eating at it, and the paint and the storms, and nobody, so we delay it 18 months, it's just even in worse shape.
Yeah.
And so somebody said, maybe it was Kevin who said that we had options about even taking the property or imposing a responsibility to maintain the property in some form while the delay is in effect. And I
Yeah.
know nothing about that.
So
but-
I think this is an underutilized portion of the demolition delay bylaw of chapter 106. We don't do anything about enforcing the neglect provisions in there. And that's something that we've asked, at our next meeting, we're gonna have the building commissioner the building commissioner come and talk to us about it, because I would like to see the building commissioner get involved in helping to enforce that part of it. We need to develop a list of buildings that are at risk, and we need to use the bylaw to its, fullest extent to get people to make the fixes before it becomes, too far down the road to make it economically feasible to repair. So I think we've got some candidates for that building mentioned before. I think the Yak Arts building is one that, it's up for sale. I think we need to right now get involved in that, so that whoever buys that inherits the responsibility to bring it back up to code. Or to bring it back up to whatever the bylaw says is, what the standard is. So yeah, I think that's a good point, that we don't do enough with that. I don't know about the provision about taking actual, well, I don't know how, I didn't know about the commission taking.
The last line in the state chapter is you can receive, acquire, bond, take, it's very broad. You are true a commission. You're not like a little ad hoc committee out there.
We'll have to look at that. I haven't looked at much at the state law they have at the bylaw.
I just wanted to say one other thing about 20. It would be nice, it's a little mournful comment, but it would be nice to have a QR code there with a picture of the original building and something, at least that's my view, is that
I think that we maybe broaden that idea a little bit, which is, maybe we could put someplace in this building or somewhere else where we have a QR code for all of the things that we've lost, and maybe have a place on the website that shows some of the things that are gone, and that might be something that we could, because I think, out of sight, out of mind, and I think it might be a good idea to bring that, back to mind.
I think the other thing is to show where people did just, they had a building and they've continued to improve it, and it has not changed, quote, the character of the building, but has demonstrated that these things are possible. And, I mean, I have one of those houses, so I know the drill. But I think there's such an opportunity to figure out again, what's the incentive to do it better? But of course, there's also the problem of, are the penalties big enough that somebody goes, yeah, I guess I really should do this?
And I
As
think-
opposed to, it's $150, I really don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's some sense of, if the penalty is A, financially significant, but B, also that we publicize somehow that, this is not happening and these are the things that are wrong, then there's some embarrassment factor, we
Yeah.
hope, if people really are attached to the town, that, they don't want to be seen as somebody who's, causing dereliction and ugliness, one hopes.
One hopes.
And you hope, as somebody did say to me, why we didn't need this regulation was because people, given the opportunity, will do the right thing, which I found humorous at
Yeah.
best. But I
Yeah.
think that's the problem, is that people, when given the opportunity, don't always do the
Yeah.
right thing. So-
There was on the news recently, the former Fed chair who died recently.
Alan
Alan
Greenspan.
Greenspan, they showed him at a hearing where he was shocked that people who were supposed to be protecting the shareholder value had allowed, the 2008 to happen, and that, it's the same thing, it's really. Anyway, I just want to go back to one comment that Charles made, because Charles, I think my memory aligns with yours, those were the two things that we agreed on. But one thing that has happened since that I want to point out is that when we interpreted the bylaw recently for putting our significant buildings on there, we decided that the 1920 only applied to that 1A designation. That was a niche part of the definition. So I think we don't even need that anymore, because we can now designate a building as historic, whether it's 50 years old or 150 years old or less, because we decided that the reading that we now have of that definition, which has been backed up, I think, by town council, doesn't include the 1920s. I think we're actually okay with that. So
Just
we're
to
clean.
clarify, that
demolition
town
delay
council's
on it?
opinion was that it could be read either way.
Yeah.
There was no distinction.
Right, could be read either way, but we chose to read it as it only applied to that particular type of house or particular type of designation of something as being historic, which had to do with the residents and the history of it. So we didn't use that in our determination of what was historically significant. We went by the architecture, so we didn't need to have to, the 1920, the way we're reading the definition now, is not a constraint. We don't have to have something that was built before 1920.
That was for the cottage up on
Yeah.
North Heights. Yeah.
So the demolition delay would be the only material change that we thought was necessary that last time around. But let's say at the next meeting, the August meeting, we're gonna determine what changes we wanna make, so then we can then plan on how we go about getting expertise, if we decide to do any more. So we'll put that out till August, and we
Well, I
can
would
put,
suggest that we distribute.
What do you want from each of us?
I would suggest you distribute to other people, both the current bylaw and the proposed state bylaw that's out there. We have other ones, but I think those are two things that would be helpful if everybody reviewed those two before the next meeting.
okay, I'll send those around again.
And Mike, I think you have them, right? I sent them all
We've
to
had it
you.
in multiple packets.
Yeah,
Yeah, I-
It's kind of
I-
where this conversation
Yeah,
started. One thing I would
listen-
challenge this group to do, and we've talked around and about it, is making the change from 12 to 18, being able to explain to anybody in a short amount of time what that does and why that's a good idea. Because without that, I mean, everything we've talked about is kind of a jigsaw puzzle, how it fits together, without being able to persuasively explain why that makes sense
Yeah.
for the average person and somebody who owns a historical structure. We could talk about it all day, but it's not gonna,
Right.
I think it'll be very difficult to pass in the town meeting floor.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
May I just add
Yeah.
one last comment? And that is, I wonder if, given what Kevin had sort of referred to as the broad powers of the group, and also that we're facing, another 11 and a half months with the former Cuffeys, whether there's not a substantive conversation to have about what's our strategy with that building? What are our powers? Is there, Can we get other people involved? Can we have conversations? You know, I don't know. We've got time.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, let's learn from this one and come up with some sort of plan.
Yeah, I think that's a separate conversation about that specific
Yeah,
building that
yeah.
we can have.
Okay.
You know. Bill, to answer your question, I think if we all come to the meeting next time with what changes we want to put in that demolition delay bylaw, if
Fine.
any, and what we'll support or not support, because I think it's time to make a decision about, you know, we should vote on what changes we're gonna make. And if we vote on a change that has complexity to it, then we'll get the expertise we need. Or we could delay the vote in that case and say, we'll vote after we decide whether the pros and cons of that particular thing. But we should at least vote on what we're gonna pursue next time, so we don't keep having the same conversation, so.
I do want to make one point, and I'm not suggesting we do it, but I want to make sure everybody's aware of it. We do have, for a historical district, a plan that was approved by the select board.
Right,
It's still there. It was never forwarded to the state.
right.
If we wanted to, and I'm not saying we should do this, we could forward that to the state and re-elevate that within the town instantly. Which I'm not sure everybody here was aware that that could be done, but it could be done. And what was drafted there was absolutely a minimal change. And it was very, and the history and everything, I mean, Joan did a tremendous job with that. It's a tremendous document what was done. So I just want everybody to know that we would not have to, if we wanted a historical district, start all over again. We would have to have meetings with all the various town boards, so that this time, if we did it, when it came up, people would speak up. Starting with the select board, but not just the select board. I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm not sure everybody was aware that we could do that. That is done and finished and just sitting there right now.
Right.
The reason we didn't do all of that is because we felt at that point that it was never gonna get passed. And I don't know if anything has changed. I don't think we've done enough public awareness, public education yet to change that outcome. But that was the reason why we decided not to go forward, is because we all
Not everybody
felt-
wanted to, because I wanted to go forward at that time. I was, and Joan abstained from it, and 3 other people or 4 other people voted no to it. Regardless of that, this is a different board. And, you know,
I'm of the opinion that it would be a benefit for us to send it forward and do the education along the way, because in the absence of it, we continue to, you know, the board will turn over again, trust me.
and I don't think there's anything financial, you know, we had no money. But I don't think that's an issue now, because we got a final document. So I think it's just ascending along. We could request a meeting and make a presentation to the select board. We could make a presentation to the various town meetings about why it's there. Because, don't forget, when that did not get, when the finance committee had a mixed vote on that, they didn't have that in front of them.
No.
They didn't have the final product. We never went in front of them and explained what would be done. All I'm saying is there was a lot of work done for about 7 or 8 years, and a final product that was really quite well done was in place.
Yep.
If everybody here hasn't seen it, I think it would be good to get it. Like
It's on the website.
It's on the website.
it's on the website. I think it would be good just to read it, and for this commission to have a discussion about should we do anything with it. Because that would change things. To the point about what would change, you know, what would change things, that would change things within the town if we could do that.
Well, it's a bylaw change that requires a 2/3 majority to pass. And our feeling in not going forward was that it would do more harm than good to put it forward and have it be rejected.
We may or may not, listen, we're doing nothing now.
Well, I wouldn't say we're doing nothing.
Okay, I would, but that's
Well,
that's a whole different conversation.
I think that
When,
is-
no, we're a long ways, you know, public education we've been talking about for a year now. All I'm saying is, I'm saying there's a finished product out there that's really well done, that I don't think anybody don't forget, the people who spoke up against that, there were some people who spoke up against it that have some houses there, 3 people, all part of the same household. There was somebody who said it would hurt business. The reality is it wouldn't hurt business, and the reality is the historical district, there's more money available for financing for business. Nobody spoke up that, no, that's really not true. You know, there was somebody who said the current demolition, at the meeting, I think that's the 3rd one, said that current demolition handles all those issues. Well, it doesn't, and nobody spoke up against that. So, you know, I'm just saying,
Mr. Chair, I do think what Charles has raised is kind of a separate track from this, warrants discussion, but I would say, at least from one of the select board members that created the separate entity, you've not been dissolved, that body. The work should be produced and shared, and I think, not to relive it, because that town meeting request, if you really replayed the tape, none of us would have ever asked for the more money. We would have said we got enough to go and get it done, because frankly, the people that opposed it didn't know what they were opposing.
Yeah, that was the point I
That was
made
the
at that town
problem.
meeting. Was that,
They
well, how can you
didn't
say
know.
no to this? You don't have any information.
Yeah.
well, they came in front of the CPC a couple weeks later for a different thing, and they said we were changing colors, we were changing, none of it was true. It was, what was said was just simply not true.
No one's asking me, but the way to get people to say things that are not true is the public education piece.
Yeah.
And is to go down that path, as opposed to forcing something, just to
Right.
generate. I know it's been a discussion. The other thing that we've talked about in the past that might, is a comprehensive preservation plan, where all of these tools work together. I know that's something that we had a presentation on a couple of weeks back, but that seems to be a place to put all of these tools and then prioritize them from there.
Yeah. I agree that that it's a strategy. I would like us to have a strategy and have some public awareness before we try to get a 2/3 majority for that. I'm not opposed to sending it to the state or publicizing it within town, going in front of the select board. I just don't think it's ready, we're ready yet for a vote. Now, maybe we will be as soon as the spring meeting, but I don't think we're.
I don't know what, Joan would know, but I don't know. What is the requirement that once it's sent to the state, does the clock start at that time? Or is it there until, I know we didn't have to act on it right away. But I don't know what the actual, what the regulation was. Joan would know that.
Yeah.
And we can ask her that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
It's in
she
four
would
to
know
six.
that. But at this point in time, it's just gathering dust on the website, and it was never sent to the state. I'm quite sure it was never sent to the state. And actually, I think the select board, on the vote, requested that it be sent to the state.
All right, so we'll follow up on that, put that on a future meeting for a discussion. I want to get closure on our 106 conversation so we can move on here. So what I'd like to do is say for the next meeting that we're going to make a definitive decision about what changes we're going to pursue, and then we're going to figure out what we have to do to make those changes and make a decision later about whether we agree that those still make sense after we've heard experts if that's required, if it's required from, what we decide to do. And then what I'd like to do at the next meeting as well is to set a set of milestones that lead us up to the spring of '27. In other words, set some deadlines out there so that we get to the spring of '27 and have a bylaw. In the meantime, I will go ahead and resend, or Mike, one of us will resend the current bylaw and the model from the state, and maybe I even have one or two from other towns that I can send along with that, so anybody who's interested could look at those. Okay, so moving on to the next item on the agenda, number 6 is the wayfinding project update and signage discussion. I don't know that we have a lot to talk about here. My feeling on this is that this is for wayfinding only, so it's not the same kind of signage as we've talked about at historic sites that have a little more explanation to them. This is just about pointing people to historic sites and things. And Mike, is there anything, any action item that we have on this right now? We're following it. I don't know that we need to do anything.
The only thing that's changed to the last meeting is the RFP for the second of 3 phases of wayfinding has closed. Proposals were evaluated and an agreement is out with the top proposal. So that is moving forward with, actually, that second phase coming to a close by the end of this calendar year, and then having the ability to fabricate signs and put them in the ground for phase 3.
Do you know if the commission will have some sort of interaction with whoever's awarded that agreement? Are we gonna have an opportunity to?
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be, basically what happened with the first phase was a location, identification of locations, saying these places should have signs, you should place them here.
Right.
This part is more technical, where they'll go in and they'll say the size, this is the materials used, size of the sign, how deep the pole, very detailed thing. But as there is public engagement, both I will keep on the radar as well as on their radar that there are pieces of it that are of interest to this commission.
Okay, thanks. All right, so moving to the Veterans Memorial Park discussion, I think we've more or less taken care of this in the conversation about the letter. Is there anything else on this topic that anybody wants to talk about? Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, then we're up to CPC. Charles, if there's a liaison update, we're happy to hear it.
There's very little. There's been one meeting in the last three months, because there's not much going on.
Right.
The only thing I will mention is that there is consensus, but not a vote, which will take place at the next meeting, that the commission strongly wants to do grants only in the fall operating time period, but it would take applications, public or private, town or private, for true exceptions with and emergencies. They can't wait for the next voting. They're trying to put into place some rules so that something doesn't get thrown down at the last second, where there's not the proper time to be able to have an evaluation and a public meeting to go over it, which is what happened on the recreation thing. And they're not saying that was wrong, but they're saying they want to put rules behind it. So that was really all that really took place there at that time period, and nothing else is going on right now.
So we have, we want to put in applications this year, which I think we will, at least for public awareness, if nothing else. We have until our September meeting, what do you think, or October meeting? When would we need to have?
It should be, the application should go out, the latest is November, but really should go out in October. So there should be something put on the agenda that we make a discuss, which I would assume, the preliminary one probably should be August, and then in September, we should vote on it, and we should come up with a list of things that we think would be appropriate for a CPC application.
So that means for the next meeting, we should probably have a conversation about what we want to ask for and then how much.
Well, that includes public education, probably. That includes the Form Bs.
Yep.
There may be other things. It could be something archaeological. Okay, so we need to have that conversation. So I would think in the next meeting, we should come up with a list of things that we believe are appropriate.
Yep.
And then hopefully in September, we do it. We would then pass that around to people who do the applications and submit the applications probably in October for whatever we think is appropriate.
Okay. All right, so we'll make sure we get that timeline out there. So the other thing under this item was a vote to sign the preservation restriction for Academy of Performing Arts, which was in the packet. This is similar, I think, to the French Cable Museum. Is there any difference between?
No, the commission is being much more proactive now in getting preservation restrictions. There were a number of things that got put out in the past that did not have preservation restrictions that showed up, but so be it. So they're being proactive in terms of putting them out. I think this is just a pro forma thing for us. I don't think there's anything to do. I mean, basically, it puts some legal protections that the town has provided money under CPC, and it puts some legal protections to recovery of that money or the inability of the people who got CPC funds to destroy to change the nature of the building. So I think it's an appropriate thing to do.
So I
By the
think-
way, I will make an aside, a half setback. When the whole thing came up for the historical district, there was a comment that the historical commission wanted to put preservation restrictions on all properties in there. Of course, there's no truth attached to that. Preservation restrictions only go to grants from CPC, where CPC money for historical purposes was done. Just an aside, it made me think about it.
I think, Mike, the last time we voted on this, because I have to sign the document, so I think we should do that again, right? So, does anyone want to move that?
Could I just
sign-
ask a question?
Yep.
So, I understand that CPC money is not necessarily used for maintenance, but it is available for repair. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
As long as it's restoration of a historic feature, not repair, but restoration.
Well, we've
So it's
done it,
the
we've
fire
done it. We
escape-
passed a fair
it's the
amount
fire
of that for the
escape-
schoolhouse over time.
I'm just asking.
I think that this was a conversation when we talked about some of the upgrades to the schoolhouse.
Right.
And I think it was because it was part of a restoration that it was okay, is my recollection of that conversation.
Let me put it
In
this
other
way.
words, there's certain things you have to do in order to make the building safe or follow code when you do a restoration, and that makes them part of the restoration. I think
Depending on
that-
how it's written, legal opinion, and actually Eric's opinion could come out different ways. So it's very important that it get drafted correctly, that reflects restoration.
So do we know if this one, are you asking if this one has been drafted correctly, that we're about to
Yes,
sign?
I have a personal
Okay.
concern going on, so it's just, I'm trying to figure out how to apply for emergency monies for something that's a.
Do you?
For some other building to which you were attached? Could that be it?
Some,
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
do you have an objection to this particular, to us
No.
signing it? Okay, all right, so then, will someone move that I sign on behalf of the commission the historic
So moved.
document? Okay. Second?
Second.
All right, so Bill second, Bill moved, Thaddeus seconded for our minutes taker. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so 500.
Let me break up one other thing with CPC. There was a conversation about CPC monies that had been given out and done to a contract. That as the CPC representative, I had not also co-signed. And I believe Joan is going to go in front to make sure that any money that is CPC money that's given out should also be signed by the CPC representative that's a liaison for that. When we did the money for the Form Bs, we did the money for the contract for the archaeological people, as the CPC monitor of that, I didn't sign that, and that became an issue that if CPC money's given out, the liaison should also approve it. Just as an aside, there was something that was done, I think it was with the Veterans Park, where a few years ago, where a large amount of money was given out, and there's zero CPC monitoring that takes place. And what the commission is trying to do now is to make sure that all the funds that are expended are reviewed by the appropriate liaison. So I think that's gonna come back to you, because I think Joan's gonna go within the town to make sure it came back. But I think whoever's the representative, at this point, I'm the representative of doing that, and I would have had no trouble with co-signing it, but I believe, anyway, that did come up during the CPC meeting too, and it's in process.
Just to clarify, are you talking contracts or
Yes.
invoices?
Yeah, because you're spending CPC money,
So, my question is contracts or invoices? Because money's not spent.
contracts.
Okay.
Because, here's what shows up at CPC. Once the contract's signed, that money goes off the open CPC funds, it's off the fund, because the money's already been allocated. So when I got a list at the last CPC meeting of all the open money hadn't been spent, none of that showed up, because as far as what shows up in the town records, and I could be wrong, I haven't done this personally, I just saw what was there. What showed up in the town records is that money had been spent, even though all the Form B money has not been spent yet. All the archaeological money has not been spent yet.
So we have to encumber the funds at the time of contract, and it is specific to municipal finance, and this is above my understanding, but there's money available, there's money encumbered, and there's money spent.
Right.
The money encumbered is, the money will be part of a contract ideally in the next fiscal year, and that's the point of the contract. No money goes out until that invoice is paid.
But as far as CPC is concerned, that money's gone.
I can't speak to that.
So I don't know what the answer is, because it involves some things that I'm not quite sure of the details. But I do know that as the CPC monitor of those projects, I didn't sign off on that, and the money's no longer showing up at CPC. And it's, I'm not the only, there's a couple other places where that took place.
I mean, this probably should be offline because it's CPC related, not you, but when I was on CPC, every month we got the journal. Every single item that was encumbered had a project number, and that's what you tracked the expenditures. So it didn't go off the books anywhere. It was just designated now to that project. I can say, for example, I can't remember one specific, but you'll see a coding, 801 N85 or, whatever. And that stays there with that project until it's fully closed out. So I think we might want to talk separately.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a procedural detail to be worked out. All right, so let's, moving on to our next project, which is the Form Bs. To the next item, which is the projects, and the first one is Form Bs. So Eric has this ongoing, he's submitting his invoices on a regular basis. He told me in an email that he expected to finish the current grant by September. And Mike, you and I had a brief conversation about what to do with the money that's just been awarded, whether we need a new RFP or if it's feasible for us to simply add this to the existing contract. Have you done any more on that? Do you know what that case is there?
Yeah, I think with the money that was awarded for this fiscal year, that it is similar to what the RFP for Form B was, given the dollar amount. I think we can justify using the proposal that we previously submitted. If that's, it is up to the commission highly to handle that. If we'd like a new solicitation, we've solicited very similar to what we did, I think, fall of last year. But we do have a contract currently that we could amend, given the way that it was procured in the fall.
So what you're saying is we wouldn't have to put it out to bid again, we would just award Eric the 25 and just extend the existing contract or add to the existing contract?
I think that's a possibility. If that is the preference of the commission.
Yeah. Does anybody have an issue with that? I mean, Eric's been doing a good job on this for a long time. I don't know that we need to go look for somebody else to do it.
He has an outstanding end product. I wouldn't change it at all.
Okay.
He's done this for about 4 years now. We're slowly working our way through the Form Bs. I wouldn't change it at all.
Yeah, so I think the sense of unless you need a formal vote, the sense of the commission is that we would just,
Vote would be helpful.
okay. All right, so anyone want to move that if it's feasible, we award the fiscal year $25,000 grant to Eric Dre and extend the existing contract? That is, moves it, need a second? Second, Bruce, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so, and Mike, we'll leave that in your hands then if, okay,
I'll report back on this,
okay.
or before.
Okay, great. The next project on the schedule is the archaeology project, and I've heard from Holly Herbster, who's conducting this for PAL, that they will be ready on schedule, which was for a September completion and presentation. As you know, we've been working with this in a partnership with the Orleans Conservation Trust. They want to be part of that presentation, so what I've suggested is that we invite them to our September meeting and that the PAL present at our September meeting the results of their archaeology survey of the several properties that they did reconnaissance on in Orleans, mostly in East Orleans and the Nauset Heights area, but also in some other areas around the eastern part of town. So if no one has an objection to that, then we will make that invitation when the time comes to OCT to be part of this. I think, Mike, this room is big enough. I don't know how big OCT is, but I don't know that we'll have a problem with space. I don't know that everybody will come. I don't think we need a bigger dais. I don't think we need to put them on the dais for our meeting necessarily.
I think we're okay.
I think we're okay. All right, and everybody okay with that? And then that project is going along well, so I think we're in good shape. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing the results there, because there was quite a bit going on when the day that I did the property walk around. Okay, so the next item is public education. I think the first part here, Mike, is we have an RFP out that was due today, I believe.
That's correct.
Did we get any proposals?
We solicited, based on the dollar amount of the CPC award, we solicited 5 different firms. One we did not hear back from. One we heard, we presented to this commission beforehand, there was some initial interest, but did not provide a response. 2 responded that, based on timing and scope, would not work out, and we did receive 1 full proposal.
Wow. Who was the one that came before the commission then? Was that Skelly? He did not make a proposal?
We did not.
Oh, that's disappointing.
So I think it would make sense, after the discussion, perhaps, I know Ed and Thaddeus had kind of led this initiative, if the 3 of us reviewed what was submitted.
Okay.
Along with the 2 who had asked for either more time or the timing not working out, to determine how to handle this.
Okay.
Given what we have for funding and what we kind of talked about as far as making sense of the public education piece.
Okay.
I think it was, the response with the full proposal was from 2 birds.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so we'll set up a meeting separately to do that. The next thing I had under public education was Thaddeus, you've been doing some work on this, and you may want to talk about some other things. And we were talking about bringing forward some ideas to the select board. I think there's more homework to be done. One of the things that Thaddeus brought up, Brewster has just recently put in, you can talk more about this, an award for preservation. One of the things that I'm curious about is whether we can offer some financial incentives for preservation, especially around tax abatements or maybe some other things that I don't know about that might be financial. And then a small budget allocation for OHC, because we need expertise from time to time, and because we also need help with the negligence, demolition by negligence, and other things around the significant building, that I think it would be useful for there to be a small amount of money that was allocated that the town staff could spend on behalf of that. So those are just sort of my high-level things of things we're pursuing. And Thaddeus, if you want to talk more about what you've been doing, that'd be helpful.
Well, first let me just say, I think Mary makes a great point about timing. I mean, we have the Binnacle property that's gone, and it's striking how few people knew that was even an issue. And then we have the Cuffey's property that I think, we've got some time, to work that, but also just to make people aware that, this threat is imminent and exists. So I think, exactly, I would totally agree with what she said. I mean, it's one thing if this was, a mile down a road off Tonset or something, but it's not. I mean, it's in front of everybody, so the timing's right, but I think we really have to move on it. I think, my hope, or think the hope of the commission has been that we could get out with, just with our presence on social media, just about the historic buildings and homes in Orleans, that these would get onto the, that we could have a platform, but also use the town's platform and use the cultural district's platform, just so we got historic buildings in the mix. And that's where we could really use some help, some from a third party, or some sort of organization, in town that was interested in that. So that sort of, I think, you can also sort of, I think you could probably realistically, if we had that today, we would be putting up maybe a post on, the demolition, or just raising awareness that that these threats existed. So, or perhaps you're also talking a little bit what Charles was talking about, the fact that, that these historic preservation generates tax revenue, and that boosts property values, is good for tourism, is good for, for downtowns. So, that if we could get a little help, and Mike, let's talk about that. But I think our timing, we need to move quickly on this. The two other pieces that I would like to, I think we can sort of handle to some degree on our own. One is, you mentioned the Brewster Historic Renovation Awards. That is in, so far as I know, that's cooperatively with the Old Kings Highway District and the Brewster Historical Society. So my feeling is that we can replicate that very easily by just, going and saying, okay, what is your program? How does it work? And then go into to Jay and the Historical Society and go into Kings Highway and say, you know what? We want to do something very similar. What we're going to have to do, though, is get the process, up on the website, and that's going to take time and money, and also just the actual, coming up with awards. How it's going to be complicated. I mean, it's not complicated, but it's going to require time. But I think we ought to jump on that, and then similarly, I spoke with Jay the other day. And we've been talking about historic signage. These are the, the sort of oval historical society signs that say, the Sparrow House, circa, 1840. And it turns out that this process is all set up. The Don Fancy's sign company is the one that produces them, and they cost $145. But I don't know. We need to get language, if it's not already there, up and process about how you go about doing this. Now, the other thing I would say is, from a CPC or some other perspective, can we get money? Can we just so that, or decide, hey, 20 structures in Orleans we believe need to have these signs, and get those and say, hey, I don't know, let's say it's Academy Playhouse if they don't already have one. You need this, we want to provide it. Here's how you go about doing it, and the cost is borne, by CPC.
So let me try to answer that. For public buildings, we could get a CPC grant
Okay.
if it got approved. For private buildings, we could not get it.
Okay.
But there's nothing stops Cho from asking for the money for private residences, and with that grant, if it gets approved, then doing that. So there is I don't want to say a back door, but there is a way to work that. But we cannot, as a commission, put in a request for private residences.
Right.
But Joe can ask for money and
Yes, they
give
can.
it to private.
Yes, they can. They could do an application for that, and they would have to get approved, obviously, like everything else in CPC, but that could be done there. I don't know of any other financing that's available other than that. You know, unless the town put out money, but I think that would then become a budget thing, it'd become a town meeting, and I think, I guess we could do that, but.
Well, a Cho could solicit for private donations also, for.
I would suggest that Joe put in money for a decent-sized grant to request that and put it in, and then they can easily in the application list, because we have the list of historical buildings that are within the town. There's 125 historical buildings that would apply that don't currently have siding. We would like to put that up just like we do Form Bs, and it would cost $200 per house for 125. So we do 10,000 a year, 20,000 a year, or whatever.
And I'd say, Thaddeus, too, if the playbook is already there,
Yep,
you're actually making them the administrator of this little thing.
yep,
But it raises their visibility too.
yep,
Yeah.
And frankly, we need that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that would be a good application.
Yeah.
And we can offer to Jay to help out,
Yeah.
although he's done the application process before too.
Right.
I'd be happy to help out.
Right, so let's
Well,
move on
Joe
that.
could do
Maybe-
the application.
Oh, yeah.
They do the best applications of anybody. I mean, they could do that.
Yeah.
If they wanted to. They'd
That's
have
great.
to make that decision.
So let's, maybe Ed, we can meet one more time with Jay
Yeah.
and talk it through. But I mean, I think those three, those three sort of tactical, or let's just say tactics, stronger social media, some sort of award that you get the word out about historic renovation and historic signage, would be, and, perhaps we're the ones who say, these 20 buildings are
So
leaving.
let me add a couple things. One, we should come up with a list
Yep.
of public buildings that do not currently have signage that we want to do. That would probably be a CPC application that I think would go through, my guess is it'd go through pretty easily, depending on what the amount is, even if we had to split it over a period of time. I don't think that would be a big issue. I am a little, I'm not clear what an award would be, by the way, for, like you just mentioned, would it be a financial award, and if so, how does it get paid?
I don't think it's financial, but let's just say, for instance, I noticed that, I don't know what number on Monument Road, but it's 2 houses on, past the Civil War Monument, on the left-hand side, and my sense is that that's not gonna be demolished. There's scaffolding up, and that's the one that had the sort of the garage, the barn garage, where that was just littered with stuff falling out of it.
It's still there.
It may be that, somebody does a very nice job with that house. And if that's the case,
So just put a new roof on it.
yeah, if that's the case, that they ought to be, or that somebody, the builder or them or something.
But is the award like a plaque, or is it do you know what the
I
award
don't
itself
know,
is?
I don't know, but I assume so. I assume it's,
Some places it's recognition at town meeting.
gold brick award kind of thing,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
it's good for the builder, it's good for the architect, it's good for the
Yeah.
homeowner.
Maybe
Okay.
we get a place at town meeting on the agenda.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we have some meetings, we need to set up a meeting with Mike and another one with Jay, and you and I, and we can work through that.
Yep.
Anything else on public education? No?
The last thing I would add is separately, we probably ought to come up with a plan for 16. It's 16, right? Southern Orleans Road.
Yeah, 16, yeah.
Yeah, that, that maybe there's a public education element to that, but it needs to figure in the broader messaging, but,
But we definitely want to do public awareness thing around 20 South Orleans Road.
I mean, I'm talking about Cuffees, is that 20 or 16?
Yeah, 20.
I'm talking about, that's 16, I'm talking about 20 that just got, the Pinnacle that just got knocked
Yeah,
down. We
yeah,
want to
yeah.
make that part of it, I think we
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to, you said
yeah.
that, take up Mary's suggestion
Yeah.
on making as
Yeah.
much as we can out of the
Yeah.
fact that that's lost.
Right.
Okay, in that case, moving on to item number 10, new business. Mike, I got an email from Molly Bates about officers, so the select board apparently went ahead and made the reappointments, or is in the process of doing that. And we did not do any organization voting, because Charles and I, our terms were both up, for one thing. I'm wondering, should we put that on next month's agenda, to vote officers again? Okay, so let's put that on.
Actually, it turns out my term's not up.
Oh, it's not?
No, because I guess I was, at least that's the communication I got back from you, that was told that it's not up because some of my years were,
Full term.
was not as a permanent member, so I probably go another year or so without.
Well, the term was up, but you were eligible for renewal.
No, what I was told, and this may not be true, but what I was told was that my term wasn't actually up, my 3-year term, because
I see.
some of the previous years, the 2 terms I'd been there before, was not as a full member of the commission.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, I have that email.
Yeah, it doesn't
I don't
matter, 'cause
really
we've been-
care one way or the
Yeah,
other.
we've
but
been
that's-
renewed, so I don't think at this point.
Well, I don't know if it's been renewed under the old term or a new 3-year term.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't know, we'll find that out, I suppose, at some point. But in any case, we can do elections at the next board.
Well, we're running late on some things because it's probably okay. See, because CPC, but we're not having an August CPC meeting, so
Yeah.
we should be able to do it in August, you're probably right.
All right, good. So the minutes, there's a next item on the agenda, unless anybody has any new business that we want to bring up. The minutes, we decided, Bruce and I, right before the meeting started, Bruce has edits and I have edits. And so rather than vote on these minutes this month, we're going to wait, we'll consolidate the edits, have the minutes updated and vote on them next month.
Could I just say that I thought the June 5th minutes of the site visit were perfectly adequate, and that we could vote on them if we choose to.
Oh, okay.
I'd move that we adopt them as submitted.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Anybody else have any issues with the, okay, so that's a motion, Bruce?
Yes, please.
Second?
Second.
Thaddeus, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so the minutes for the June 5th site visit are approved.
And I guess we don't want to get into the details on the 10th minutes, but maybe you and I will have to schedule a chat and go through them together and mark them up.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it, and I don't think we need to hold everybody up, though, for that.
Yeah, no,
You and
I
can
don't
probably do that over
either.
the phone, through email.
Okay, I'll reserve all my comments.
Because we may have the same, we may have the same edit.
You know, this evoked my, okay, there's one thing I was concerned about that I would like to say something about. There was one item that said, Mr. Salitro explained the method of appeal. And then in parentheses, it said, the rest was inaudible.
Yeah, I
I was
deleted
just-
that line in
I
my,
was
in my
just- I was
in my
just
head.
concerned about
Yeah, I didn't,
that.
I don't know, I'm not sure the appeal discussion was all that relevant to begin with, and I didn't think, yeah, I don't know what was inaudible, but I just struck that line
Fine.
in my comments.
Okay.
I don't know if, Mike, if you feel like it's relevant that we put that in the
And
minutes.
just to jump ahead, in the cultural plan update, there was a URL of the historicorleans.org, and that URL didn't work. So
Okay.
I don't know how to find the one that does
Oh, it
work.
doesn't anymore. I think that, was that the point, or?
My point is that when I went to that URL, which was in the minutes, it said
What?
there was not a site.
Remind me why the URL is in the minutes in the first place?
At the very, very end, the cultural plan update, there's HTTPS > historicalorleans.org, and for some reason.
Well, that's not a cultural, the historicalorleans.org is probably the wrong link for a cultural update. That was the That's the link of the site that we just shut down.
Okay,
Which was
well,
the old historic,
my
the
point was
commission
only
site
that-
before we moved it to the town site.
The only
So,
point
all right,
is
so
that
that
there's a
should
link
be,
there
yeah, it doesn't
that's-
work, okay,
right.
that should, I'll check that too, that doesn't, that should be in there, I didn't notice that, or maybe, yeah, I don't think I noticed that in my head. I'll look at that, that doesn't belong there. All right, does anybody have any other comments or business? I want to thank the select board members for their contributions and for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Very helpful.
I'd just like to apologize for
Nice
not
to meet
meeting the
you. Appreciate it.
meeting code of khaki tan
Sure.
shorts.
I even have the right skirt then. Wow,
All in gear.
right? Hello, team.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Good meeting. I think we're making some progress along a number of fronts. Hopefully, we'll continue.
Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn. Mr. Dow,
All in favor?
you want a second?
We got it for Bill.
For the minutes, did we state who was here for this meeting at the beginning?
I'm
So
not
that
sure.
they'll know, so that when the minutes get done, they'll know?
Yeah, they'll, she's gonna do it by the video, but if we wanna just quickly go through and name names, you wanna just do that? Okay.
Bruce Dow.
Charles Ellis.
And Mark Morelli. Whoops. Bill?
So.
Sorry, I talked over you. And,
Thaddeus Herrick.
okay, so you got everybody. All right, meeting is adjourned.